Now, having read some passages of a book, I have some question. Why the ionized proton, having discreted, separated from the electron to the proton state of plasma, having great heat, what the temperature means on that dissection. Having a great temperature inflicted upon that hydrogen, separating the proton from the electron, ionized, being a state of plasma. And when having a state of plasma, it says, I don't know whether it is true or not, the plasmized proton moves. Why? Moves why? For seeking the stability to go find the other electron. But having a high temperature, it constantly separates the proton from the electron, having a destabilized state of proton. Destabilized by the impact of high pressure heat. That temperature makes the plasmized state at all times of plasmized state of proton, seeking the stability, meaning going forward, going outward, going everywhere to make a stability. Since it cannot make a combination with other electrons because it has a plasmized state. When it goes, again plasmized, always remaining the same state of plasmized proton, seeking the stability, going what? Several hundred kilometers per, not hour, per second. Meaning 3,600 times and by several hundred kilometers per hour. And how the mere combination of 4 atoms, 4 protons into the 4 hydrogen makes a helium. How the property for its essence, whether it be called physics or chemistry. Wow. How just mere 1 that added certain combination, meaning certain, not 5 combinations, but 4, not 3, but 4 combinations, make the other boy hydrogen to helium. So, having a plasmized state, separate, and how much speed? Seeking the stability, the several hundred kilometers per second, and why the 4 hydrogens make up the helium. How does the chemical property essentially changes from 4-to-1 ratio, and as in the case of Uranus, the difference of temperature between 42-year period of summer consecutive, another 42 years of winter, but having less, almost the same temperature between those extreme weathers, because the wind speed is very fast. Convection, wind speed is very fast. And it says the atoms that absorbs that light and heat, meaning that EM wave from the sun, is hydrogen, and hydrogen makes up 2 molecules, and it separates in the summer, and it does not emit their absorbed radiation, but it goes combining to the other side, winter side, going halfway around to the winter side, and combines again, and then emits the radiation, meaning just mere atoms does not make any, but 2 combination, as having an atom 2 molecule, it makes the absorption, and one and only absorption, only that combination possible, and also emitting that radiation when it is only in the molecular state, not atomic state, possible. Meaning, in atomic state, cannot do either both, but in molecular, and if only molecular state, can it both absorb and emit the radiation. Oh, isn't that amazing? And lastly, oh wow, the solar boys are emitting from the nearest to zero wave to the maximum wave. All wavelengths, all frequencies of EM wave. And the third is why the sunspot, the dark spot on the surface of sun, is converging into the equator, the center of sun, when it is exuding their potency, vibrancy. Meaning, I suspect, compared to what normally would be expected as a direct opposite and counterintuitive, it's because I suppose when there is a less amount of energy eruption, explosion, because there's a less amount in the core, I don't know, normally being seen as, because the dark spots on the surface of sun since comparatively having low temperature to the other side, those are not, meaning compared to higher temperature ones that are having higher temperature goes light, white. Ones that are having relative dark, having relative lower temperature. And when it goes much spots on the surface, meaning it operates in the core for producing, manufacturing the energy burst, and when it goes outward, which will take time to go outward from the core to the outer surface, when it manufactures inside, meaning the starting of abrupt eruption, the sunspots are, because it is only located in the surface of the sun, are dense, and when having a time that those were produced previous time, when it goes surface out, resultedly to go flare, the sunspot goes shrinking. I suspect that having a sunspot when it is exuberating its power, but this is our thinking, but actually it is the exact opposite, meaning some important ones we're missing. Inner core, having a bloody amount of core, and before it reaches to the surface, and since it didn't reach yet, its surface is covered with a variety of many spots, and when it goes out, the spots are diminished, meaning the manufacturing of force takes time to go out when it is exhibited. But it says the exact opposite. The sunspots are closing into the equator, and when it is farther from the equator, the sun's activity is low, and going to the closer to the equator goes exuberant. Not about the equator, but the essence of the word equator in these passages. The sunspot goes converging onto the center of surface. And what are the other? Center of a surface on certain 2D circle. When it extends to 3D, it makes an equator. Having a certain 2D image and going center and another center to the other 2D, when its center is lined around, it makes the equator, meaning the equator line of a sphere means the convergence of each of dots that are made in the 2D image. Convergence of dots, the center dots in 2D image, those are combined into 3D. It makes a line of circle, and as they call it, an equator on a sphere, 3D form. It lines along which has the longest distance circumference on the sphere. Now for solving that question is to why the dark spots. The spots that are having comparatively lower temperature to the other side of the sun is converging into the equator, meaning the equator, the center of every 2D image of a circle expanding to 3D sphere, it converges into the center of each and every 2D images of circle. Does it have a real meaning? Whether it converges into the equator or not, whether the dark spots are converging into the equator line that is having the most distance of circumference, does it have any meaning as to why the counterintuitive convergence of dark spot compared to the eruption of sun? Any relation? So we have to know what will be dark spots. Confirming that whether dark spots are having how much depth, like 1 kilometer, which means almost nothing, but 100 kilometer, which means something, or it's just under 1 kilometer, which means almost nothing. It says, I don't know whether this image is accurate or not, when the action of sun is not that active compared to when the dark spots are converging into the equator, that is spread outward, distant from the equator. Exuberant, closing into the equator. Now, not about solving this particular problem of all those possibilities from the relation with the dark spot, the lower spot that is a lower temperature to the other one. We have to make the structure of a sun, and we have to understand not from this result to cause sequence, but the exact opposite, the right choice, accurate sequence of development, meaning why on earth, how the dark spot, the spot that is having relatively lower temperature can be made on the sun, can be made on the sun. If we know the origin of why that happens, we can have a better logic to make a structure for making that phenomena. If those are repetitive, it has a concrete logic. If those period for when it is exuberant and not, having dark spots appearing and not. That is repetitive. It has a concurrent logic. We have to make that. Number 1 question. Why the spots, areas, meaning areas that are having comparatively low temperature, can be made? And they can be made. Why? Those actions are not what I call not evenly dispersed. Those actions are not evenly dispersed on the certain area compared to the other area, and vice versa, having relatively higher or lower active action. And if we assume that from that one and only reason the dark spot is appearing, then we can assume now the ChatGPT says, compared to the book, that not writes that there is a cause by the magnetic activity, which ChatGPT did. We have to think about that. Now, number 4 is what called in Korean translation, directly translated into English, as a layer that separates the magnetic, electromagnetic, a layer that separates from the out to in, which is the layer, either left or right side of the layer, as a separating layer from the EM waves going from other words to the outward. It reflects, and going inward, it reflects inward. Just a separating layer. How to? That is a layer which is located in the upper sphere of Earth's atmosphere. Chemical composition, how to reflect, how to make a protecting layer of EM waves, reflecting, preventing, protecting. When there is a layer has a shield from one type to the other, it can make two different communications in the same space compared to where it's not. It's important, very important one. Now, when the hydrogen of a star is depleted, converting all its resources, virtually all, into the helium having a heavier one, but compared to the protostar having the massive volume and weight, its energy as resources draining down, emitting the partial part of their resources potential energy into the medium of EM wave to radiate. And when the chemical portion, atomic portion of a star is gradually growing for helium compared to the hydrogen, but while simultaneously, since its resources is draining down, even though the density goes up, the weight goes down, so does the volume. Volume does not have any importance in the term of gravity. Gravity only matters when there's a mass. Density matters. Mass goes down, but the density goes up. How the remaining helium, having comparatively lower mass compared to the protostar, but having a higher density because of the heavier atom, can produce more heavier ones requiring more heavier gravity. Heavier gravity requires more density. and but the mass is shrinking. Mass is okay. Mass is not. Mass is not. Density goes up. Mass is not. Enough to make the combination of those helium state of plasma, separating the electrons from those core, and core converging into the other form, making a combination, heavier boys, requiring more gravity, more density. It is a point where the enough density, enough gravity is required to do so. And lastly, when we see, as we just said, for learning, it's just the accumulation of simulations. During that processes on each of those, you analyze, applicate, organize, and create new one. Accumulation of simulations, and that accumulation process is made by your own creation. Your own imagination for its extent and depth makes the creation of simulation. How to accumulate by your own creation, and that, for example, is the Earth having 4.5 billion years of age, from the plants to the microorganisms to the animal boys. Those boys were changed upon this simulation and literally evolved by the accumulation of those analyses experienced from those experiments. Excruciating pain makes the gain when those data from the simulation are analyzed, accumulated, designed, and go further. It makes the memory, the storage of informations, and makes the another advancement, another simulation upon that stage of accumulated time, accumulated state, accumulates more and further from each of those previous state of accumulation. Accumulate more like a mountain, just make a mount upon that, make a mount upon that, make a mount, and each and every time you step onto that mount, as soon as you make a development, your step goes further higher, upper. Each and every time you make development, you go step onto it and make it more quantity and quality of simulations, because you do know more with that recent up-to-date state. Development is accelerated because there is an accumulation upon which each and every time of that state you step onto it and make the another one based on that previous one, not starting from the very origin. So that is made, and thus it evolves with an accelerated rate, even though it just goes constantly, because there is an accumulation. For what we call exponential growth is made by the exact process. And from going the biology and environment, climate, meteorology, genealogy, geology, oceano, all those other interactions disciplines, and the astronomy boys, cosmology, in aggregate, those are just the same, having a slight different magnitude, big boys, smaller boys, but having a complexity surpasses any other known spaces of the universe than in the Earth, because it has more simulations that are executed by the name of survival. Yeah. But even though having a difference in their complexity, slight structure, and in terms of magnitude, those are just a history of accumulated simulations. You do more, you know more. Okay? Do more, know more. You can know more from doing more. And more universes. Having no intention to do any so, but being interacted by the other forces, even though even those forces are not having any intention to do any different. So those are just meaningless simulations. And that has to be advanced by having proactive simulation. This passage is not nearly as interesting. This passage is not nearly as much interesting as our smallest imagination, called Phases of a Supernova Explosion. Stars undergo a series of changes referred to as star death. A small percentage of this death resulted in incredible supernova, and the star experienced rapid intense combustion. The supernova stars must acquire certain mass matters. Discovered in 1930, China Sekar, and the maximum mass for an active star is 1.4 times 40% larger than the mass of the sun. When a star's mass exceeds that limit, it will no longer be able to produce sufficient energy to support itself. Stars smaller than the sun cannot generate the heat that are required to start fusion because of lower gravity, lower pressure, lower heat, no fusion, for not getting to the limit for starting a fusion. Required temperature for starting a fusion. Therefore, this occurs predominantly in stars larger than the sun, as these feature a hotter core temperature, higher pressure by higher gravity that weight that prompts fusion, mass matters that prompts fusion to transfer at an increased rate, increase the overall size and cause them to have a relatively shorter lifetime when compared to slower burning small stars. This is important. This increases the overall size and causes them to have a relatively shorter lifetime because they burns fast by the increased pressure heat, burning their resource at a faster rate, like 3% a year, but slower burning small stars like 1.5% a year, to transfer at an increased rate. When the limit is passed, the structure begins to disintegrate and supernova occurs. The overall size causes to have a relatively shorter lifetime. Many words, but smaller cores. Gravity makes pressure, which makes a heat, makes a fusion, which has a limit to whether to start a fusion or not. A fusion that has a limit that can vary per the essence of elements. Categorize supernovas into two types. One, develop from dormant stars that have exhausted the hydrogen in the core. Typically, this is a gradual process that causes such slowly transfer into inactive white dwarf as heat of the core is swept away into space. However, in cases where two dying stars are located adjacent to one another in what is known as a binary star system, the supernova can occur. For a type 1 supernova to occur, stars must be close enough that one can draw material from one another, the other. When white dwarf accrues enough matter to surpass Z limit, simply just combining, becomes unstable and supernova. Type 2, the internal fusion process remains active even after the hydrogen fuel in the core is exhausted. When this happens, core contraction creates extremely high temperatures, Core contraction by gravity creates extremely high temperatures. By gravity, high pressure, high contraction, high heat, high temperature, meaning helium that force the helium atoms to convert into carbon. Hydrogen to helium, more heavier carbon, which consumes additional energy. Ever faster rate of fusion, causing the outermost layer to expand to conserve energy. To conserve energy. To conserve energy. What does that mean? It needs more explanation. To conserve energy. causing the outermost layer to expand to conserve energy. It goes fusion, and it goes the force, the direction of force outward. Through this expansion, the star becomes a red giant. Then the Type 2 supernova produces heavy elements in its core, such as iron, nickel, which require greater energy and add to the overall mass. The fusion can no longer produce enough energy to support the additional weight. As the fusion can no longer produce enough energy to support the additional weight, meaning the additional pressure, but there is an added pressure, but there is no resource to have a fusion to go compensate, countermeasure, have a countermeasure, counterattack from the inward force by the outward force, inward force from gravity, outward force from the fusion. It cannot compensate, it cannot contract. The red giant exceeds the limit and collapses upon itself in a supernova. Exceeds. So for what was made from the fusion by combining 4 atoms, 4 protons of hydrogen to make 1 helium atom. For that atom, where is the electron? Where is the electron? When there is a hydrogen composed of 1 proton, no neutron, and the electrons around it, and having 4 protons, meaning just 4 nucleus of hydrogen atom going into combining 4-to-1 ratio to the helium. And where is the electrons? So that happens in the helium. The internal fusion process remains active even after the hydrogen fuel is in the core is exhausted, remaining only the helium. When this happens, core contraction creates extremely high temperatures that force the helium again to convert the heavier ones like carbon, which consumes additional energy, causing the outermost layer to expand. I don't understand. Which consumes additional energy resource, causing the outermost layer to expand to conserve energy. Needs more explanation. Through this expansion, the star becomes a red giant. Heavy elements to produce, such as iron, nickel, which require great energy and add to the overall mass. More fusion, more mass, more pressure, more gravity, more heat, more temperature, higher temperature, making the harder ones to combine fusion possible, okay? Not only from hydrogen to helium, also helium to carbon, even carbon to the more heavier ones such as iron and nickel require great energy and to overall mass, the density of matter. As the fusion can no longer produce enough energy, there is no resource to compensate to the outward as the more weight from making your own action, okay? Your own action as a fusion made a lot of elements again and also and more heavier ones, okay? Accumulating, and even the accumulating in the process, the elements that are accumulated for its count can be unvarying, but its density goes up, not from the helium, not from the carbon, not from the lighter ones, but the heavier ones, iron atoms, nickel atoms, okay? So it adds as it goes fusion, meaning draining resources, okay? Draining resources and making a fusion, okay? Draining resources, making a fusion, producing heavier atoms adding more weight, adding more, weight to the star, adding more pressure, but there is no resource left to compensate that weight and gravity that goes directly inward, as not to compensate by going outward from the fusion. It is just a one phase to the other, having a draining resources, making a fusion, which makes a heavier items, which adds the weight, which adds more weight. As the draining of resource continues, making a fusion continues, it produces more heavier atoms, which adds the more weight, which adds more pressure to make a stronger fusion. That is a self-destructing procedure. Draining makes draining resource for fusion, which creates heavier atoms, which adds on the weight, which pressures more to make a fusion more, because there is more added weight. Added weight as per the draining resource to make a fusion, which produce higher, more heavier ones accumulating, adds more pressure, adds more weight, requires more pressure, requires more weight, meaning it has to compensate, as to sustain its phase. It has to go outward. It has to go outward for draining more. And since number one, it drains down, its supply is not unlimited. Okay, it is limited. And number two, even though it is possible to imagine for those resources are unlimited, but when the draining resources making a fusion producing a heavier atom accumulates and goes adding more mass, it constantly and gradually requires more and more and more and more stronger fusion. Okay, when it goes continuously creating more heavier atoms. Okay, and number one, the supply for resources to make a fusion it's just limited. Supply for resources is limited. Number two, adding more weight onto the star for going higher pressure, more weight, more gravity, going down, going inward, but resources are draining, and even if it is not draining, it has to create much higher forces to go outward, much heavier forces to go outward by making a fusion, which makes the more heavier atoms. So draining resource to make a fusion from one phase to make a heavier items, which is second phase, and that accumulation draining down, slowing smaller the resources, and the heavier the produced products, and the products pressure down the producer. Okay, products press down the producer, going down, and the producer cannot bear the weight impacted by the products, making a pressure more higher, more heavier products. For that increased amount, make a pressure on that producer, no longer possible to make a fusion, because number one, there is a limit for resources to make a fusion. Number two, as the fusion goes, meaning the higher, heavier atoms are accumulating. Accumulating means more weight, because there is more weight as its process goes along. It makes more weight, more mass, more gravity, which means it requires more fusion. As the process goes all along, not only it creates heavier items to produce and accumulate more, and because it accumulates more and adds on to the weight, it has to go outward. It has to go a fusion more stronger to make compensation. So self-destruction, draining, fusion, create, and add. Adding requires, in reverse direction, adding requires more power. Okay, draining, fusion, heavier accumulates. That accumulation adds require more power to go. So supply for fusion is limited, and even if it is not unlimited, it has to, as the process simply goes all along, it has to produce more stronger power, it has to produce more heavier atoms. If not, it will self-destruct. Okay, literally, because there's the reason of why it says exceeds the Chandrasekhar limit and collapses upon itself in a supernova. It cannot hold longer, no longer to hold its weight, okay? If it goes big, it creates a black hole, literally. Not literally. Okay, supermass, okay? Fusion, draining, producing heavier, adding weight, which requires again in reverse direction more power to compensate. Isn't it funny? Okay, having a producer works hard and make a product and make a product, make a product. Those made products, those results are just not fleeing, but adding on to the structure, making more pressure, which resultantly requires more power to go outward. And number one, since the supply for making produce the fusion is limited, helium, not any other atoms to make a fusion, is limited for its supply, limited. And number two, even if it is not, okay, and having a unlimited resource, it has to, because just simply nuclear fusion goes all along sequentially, but it accumulates the heavier products in reverse as the more weight upon it, which requires more higher power. Not only it has to go with an unlimited resource to maintain its phase, which is impossible, and if the resource is unlimited, it has to produce by the effect that the heavier ones are not fleeing but accumulating, requires more weight to compensate, more power to go. It has to produce more higher, heavier ones. So it has to accelerate into the fucking unlimited, into the, yeah. So, draining resources, limited. Adding more weight upon that star, it has to go more higher. That is a self-destructing process. And number one, when the resource is limited, and number two, when the power that are required to maintain the phase has to be accelerated ever further, whose limitation has no limitation by the number. The products are accumulating, which means as to make a compensation counter force, it has to produce more, meaning resource limitation. Number two, power ever faster, ever accelerating. How it is possible? Unlimited resource and burning unlimited resources into ever more faster power, higher prowess? Is it possible? So that process itself by a star is destructive, self-destruction, okay? And it says, one major consequence of this explosion is the creation of nebula, tremendous cloud and dust and gas like a carcass consisting of expelled material from the void. Over millennia, the dense nebula will amass matter, and because of its gravitational pull, again starts its own fucking meaningless journey, resulting in the formation of planets, stars, and other space superposed material from the exploded star. At the same time, the core cools down from the supernova and forms into a dense, cold neutron star. Core cools down. It goes again into the original thesis. Core, after the supernova, core cools down by the radiation to the space, emitting its heat energy go to the space from the supernova, forms into a dense, cold neutron star. These are similar to white dwarfs in that they cannot generate heat or energy because they do not possess any ability to perform fusion. Its mass is not enough to, because it was just exploded. It was exploded because the mass was requiring a higher fusion. Fusion couldn't resist but to collapse. Fusion couldn't, and the mass goes inward. When it goes extreme, it creates a black hole. Okay, fusion cannot hold the upper accumulated forces that it has to continuously produce ever more faster, higher, heavier. Okay, faster, higher, heavier atoms. Okay, resource limited. Acceleration not possible. Acceleration up until at some point, and after which point it cannot possible. So self-destruction, its structure itself is a self-destruction. Resource limit, acceleration limit. Okay. So do not have any ability to perform fusion. However, neutron stars have a much higher density than white dwarfs due to the compression of the core during the supernova explosion. Neutron stars have a much higher density in its core than white dwarfs due to the compression of the core during the supernova explosion. Yeah. So, as we've just read and explored and made, those formations, phases of stars, any stars from smallest, not stars, planets and satellites to the biggest boys, the great cheese balls, fireballs, and black holes. For its size, density are different, but the governing rule from gravity to pressure to temperature to fusion to inward direction, outward direction of force and equilibrium, and burning the resources down and cannot accelerate any further for its threshold. It goes collapsing down and forms again, goes again. Repetitive, meaningless action is having on. So it is not nearly as much interesting as our smallest imagination. It is not nearly as much interesting as our smallest imagination. Those are just another and meaningless examples. Now in the question of why universe is expanding and how it goes with an acceleration, its speed of expanding is accelerating, and even the longer the distance from the core, it accelerates more than that of the core and its near adjacency. Let's suppose what it says by the astronomer named Hubble, made it in 1929, said, universe is expanding and its acceleration, it is accelerating and having longer distance faster, meaning the entire universe's accelerating rate is faster in the outer, like the core, from the core and near adjacency being 3 meters per second, and the longer 4 meters per second, longer 5, longer 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the most exterior, where the new land is being made, 100 meters per second, 200 meters per second, like that. But we don't know about the question for answering why those are: number 1, expanding; number 2, accelerating. You mean accelerating like 100 years ago, it was accelerating 10 meters per second, but in 2000s, not 1900s, accelerating 110 meters per second? Accelerating always? I don't know about that. But number 1, it is expanding surely. Number 2, from the center of core, as it goes expanding, it is accelerating for its distance. The longer, the faster. The longer, the faster. So, where is the core? And it says, like there is no core on the universe. Its expansion is observed, and when you go back to the time, it goes shrink because it was expanded. And can there be a center of its extension. What the one calls Big fucking Bang would it be? Uh, being human thinks, the monkey thinks like it is expanding because it had experienced a lot of examples, such instances, a lot for its personal experience, that like a balloon inflates, a tire is being inflated, something is exploding, okay? Whether it being an implosion or explosion, it just emits its energy out from its core, whether it's implode, explode. It starts from the center, original point, to its outer direction. Monkeys are applying that same principle onto the universe. Monkeys' ingenuity, imagination is very good, but when the genuine, a bloody, super fantastic imagination is coming out from one's head, it doesn't know how, by what causes of chain of logics for its information steps, the application for producing its imagination was made. It cannot answer. Monkey does have its brain, and monkey cannot make its brain, cannot control its brain. It can imagine, but it doesn't know how it was formed for its chain of logic. So monkey still thinks that it experienced a lot for its personal, which is subjective experience, that since it experienced a lot of implosion, explosion, having a lot of bombs and ones that goes starting from the center as a core and is gradually expanding for 360 spherical even ways, they're still applied to the same thing. And monkey, of course, doesn't know that it is applied, that it applies exactly by its personal experience. So it thinks like universe is expanding by its own from starting its core. But given the fact that the longer the distance from the core, the faster it accelerates. And do we know where the core is? Where was the first point for its expansion? The Big Bang fucking point. Well, if you think from the outside of its universe, while still universe is expanding, there always is a unexplored space, like uncharted terrain. There always is a unexplored space to which the universe is taking over. But there always is a unexplored space because by that fact it is expanding. So whether it is just a creation or there is a space but it is taken up. Creation out of nothing. Well, how do you define nothing? And taking up, was already a space and you're just making it, taking over its territory like war. Well, from the outside view of its uncharted space, could it be some force is pulling the space on its direction, because it is pulling from the outside, like there is a pizza dough and you are pulling for expanding its boundary from the outside with your fucking finger, with your fucking other tools, and the center goes rather slower on the exterior. The circumference, that part, is really directly affected by that. So, there also you have an experience for that. Pizza dough, you are from the exterior force, outer force, not only there is a protagonist, but the other man in existence. Other boy is pulling towards its position, its direction for that universe. So the core of universe is rather very slow to expand, but on the boundary of circumference of its universe, it goes fast. So the conclusion is it can not only be a self expansion, but also from the existence of uncharted space. It is not expanding, it is being pulled off, pulling out from the exterior unknown force, like the one imagined it dark matter, because the dark means ignorance, unknowing matter. Yeah, could or could not, but that dark matter can be positioned on the outside of universe where it isn't made yet. No take up of space. But that very action of taking up space is made from the outside force that is just pulling the boundary of universe towards its direction, 360 spheric directions. Self or being pulled out. Self-expansion or being pulled out. So how do you explain when it be a self-expansion that having a longer distance, it goes much faster. It accelerates by the distance, not having a shorter distance faster, but reverse, longer the distance, accelerated. How the fucking... When you can say there are a lot of stars, a lot of planets, a lot of matters in the universe, even though almost all of which is going vacant, meaning vacuum state literally, virtually. But there are matters of stars, galaxies, Milky fucking Ways, having gravity. But shouldn't the space of all universe go down by the gravity and be mounted up to the single biggest giant cheese ball, giant star going mount and self-destruct? Then how can you explain why the universe was at first formed, having a big bang and explosion? But we do see a fucking fact. Is that space expanding? It is expanding, and even a faster rate as it goes, the longer the distance. Because Earth is a part of universe, and human can make a measurement for the distance, and for that fact, having 10 kilometer, the unit being light year, having 10 light year and 100 light year, added more 0 light year. As the 0 is added one by one, it is going much faster than the previous one. Longer, the fucking faster. How can we explain this? The imagination comes in. Would it be a self-expansion, or would it be with that space is pulled out by the external force? The face-to-face direct boundary to the external force having a circumference having a surface of universe is directly inflicted by the pulling out force going much faster, but the core of universe is expanding very slowly. Ooh, what a fucking imagination. Now how can we find that the universe is being pulled off by the uncharted space? A universe that didn't make the fucking literally space, not the universe space, but a room space. Okay? Universe didn't make that uncharted territory. So unless we go faster than the expanding, we cannot find. And I've heard some of the crazy statement. Since the rate at which universe is expanding is being accelerated, one time it can how? Would the fastest speed of universe governed by its law limited the speed of light? Would it be 300,000 kilometers per second? Would it be? Really? Would it be? And how can universe expand at much faster rate than the speed of light? Can it be? Can it be? And then how? Pulling out. And what's the definition of space? The space is expanding. Number one, by what force? Number two, what is the fucking space? That can explain whether it's by force and by its nature of space can be possible for exceeding the speed of light for its expansion. Whether it is a self-expansion, which has a lot of supporting hypothesis, and not supporting but hypothesis, because we are in there and these are in existence. But the second question, universe is being pulled out by the exterior force whose territory, whose force cannot be identified unless we go through that boundary. And since it is not yet made, unless we literally go through it, we cannot find. Although the imagination for the universe is being pulled up by the external force for starting from its boundary and to the good imagination that is being pulled up by the external force. How can you prove it? Number one, we find a force what can pull out. What? In the scale of a scale that is exceeding the universe's land extent. Meaning it is not human-made. Well, human-made doesn't necessarily mean it is always artificial, that it cannot be applied to the earth, to the universe. The analogy can be said, can be made. Universe is being pulled out, being not stretching, being stretched out by the external force, not the self expansion, but like a slave, it is a passive passive motion. Oh hell. Now the war initiated on the universe will be triumphed by the learner who understands the deepest essence of all matters, applications, constituents, all machines, from the start of basic force, basic element of universe, from which all applications are created. The pure understanding, exact analysis, deep analysis of logic makes the real learning. And the war initiated on the universe is made by that, the accurate understanding. Universe is being pulled out by, and how? How? The fucking imagination makes all. Like Material fucking Sika in Russian doll, having an exact same replica but having a small size in it, again and again, like 10, 20 times. Can this, like a universe, we denominate this universe's number 3 or 30, and we become a 30th universe. 너무 과도한 상상인가? Just imagine we're in the 30th universe and there are 31th universe, like a Russian doll. They are incorporating. There is a concept in mathematics for analyzing the relationships of group. One group contains all the other group. Group A contains the entire group A, like a sun. In that circle of A, the circle of B, so the all content of B is incorporated on A. So we are a B, and there's A, the bigger boy, bigger sphere, bigger universe named 31. On top of which, 32 universe. Well, the fucking imagination can make a lot of bloody hell. A giant big cheese ball, a ball having another ball inside of which, having another ball inside of it, inside. 뭐냐 이게. So, for that external force, like the first biggest ball expands. And by how? The second ball, right beneath of it, expands by the first one. Third one expands. Third universe expands by the second one's universe, which is also be expanded by the first biggest boy. And how the biggest boy is expanding. Would there be any boundary? Then by whom? By what force has the boundary been set? Is that a stretch of imagination? So, How can we prove that the fucking idea, that universe is not proactively on its own initiatively, but being pulled out by the external force whose region of the force's existence is out of the boundary of universe. It is expanding, but it is being expanded by the external force, which we cannot identify unless we penetrate the fucking boundary of the circumference of universe. Now we are imagining a useless, needless one that we are not even sure whether can we get to that advancement in. Have an answer about it. We have to, because we cannot rely on the imaginative extra fucking terrestrial real literal aliens for its probability that they are certain to exist, that there be always a higher intelligence. We cannot prove it, so we have to work it better. Even having an imaginative question being pulled out, universe, its expanding space actually was being expanded by another one. But no answer to that. No answer. Okay, it gradually gets boring. Number 4, warranty transferability. These warranties provide only to you and by you, only to you, and is not transferable. However, subsequent owners may have statutory rights to a remedy if the product is faulty. Please keep your proof of purchase documentations, such as the original sales receipt or the relevant credit card statement. Proof of purchase is required to obtain warranty performance. The validity of the warranty is the validity of warranty is supported by the proof of purchase, the receipts. These warranties provide only to you and is not transferable. However, subsequent owners may have strict rights to a remedy if the product is faulty. Please keep your proof of purchase documentation to original sales receipt of the relevant credit card statement. In cases of authorized product or part replacement of the original purchased Samsung product, the replacement Samsung product will be subject to the remainder of the original warranty period, not to be originally set, but the remainder of the original warranty period. You may have statutory rights in respect of a replacement product or part outside of this period. I don't know how to fucking about it. 5. Carry in repairs. If you wish to make a claim in relation to a Samsung product which you can reasonably transport to the nearest Samsung customer service plaza or to an authorized repair service center, as directed when you first make the claim under this warranty, please bring or send the Samsung product to the nearest Samsung customer plaza or other service center for assessment, the cost of which will be borne by Samsung if your claim is determined to be valid pursuant to the Part 1 of this warranty. Whenever possible, the product should be returned in its original carton and packaging, or alternatively in packaging suitable to prevent damage to the product. Or alternatively in packaging that is suitable to prevent damage to the product. Samsung will not accept responsibility for damage to product during this transport caused by unsuitable or inadequate packing. If you believe that it is not reasonable for you to bring or send Samsung products to Samsung or other Samsung will liaise with you to determine the best way in which to inspect the Samsung product, the subject to claim this warranty. We'll find the best way in which to inspect the Samsung product, the subject of the claim under this warranty. That's words are mixed. Okay, Samsung will liaise with you to determine the best way for which way is the best option for the subject of this claim under this warranty, or the Samsung with you to determine the best way for which will be the inspection under the subject. What it says. Samsung will liaise with you to determine the best way in which to inspect the Samsung product, which is the subject of claim under this warranty. Warranty exclusions. This section, number 6, warranty exclusions. This section was excluded under this warranty for the avoidance of any doubt, any and all warranties or conditions which are not guaranteed under the Australian Competition and which are not expressly included in this warranty as additional warranties or conditions are excluded. The conditions, statements, or any other ones, including the Australia, especially the Australia having Australian debt law added by the code written by Samsung, except of two statements, all other things that can be seen as pertinent is not applied, so that are excluded. For the avoidance of any doubt, any and all warranties or conditions which are not guaranteed under the terms and you by Samsung, which are not expressly included in this warranty as additional warranties, that is not an additional warranty having no effectivity, having no efficacy, having no efficiency, having no validity. Fuck you. Or or conditions are excluded. Let me get back again. Samsung will liaise with you to determine the best way for which way will be the best option for bringing the Samsung product to the inspection center by the subject of this claim under this warranty. For the subject of this claim under this warranty. 아유 씨발 뭐 이렇게 어렵게 설명을 하냐. 어렵게 설명한다고 수준이 높은 게 아니라 어렵게 설명했는데 이해를 못하게 만들었어. 논리가 이제 없는 거지. 그러면 어려운 게 아니라 잘못 설명한 거야. 아니 야 단어를 섞었는데 그게 이해조차 안 되게 하면은 야 그럼 안 되지. 단어를 섞어도 어느 정도는 이해를 되게 해야 씨발 그걸 이해를 해주지. 단어를 섞었는데 이해조차 안 되게 하면 누구를 보고 이해하라는 거야. Samsung will liaise with you to determine the best way in which to inspect the Samsung product, which is the subject of the claim, which is subject to declines warranty. So, that being said, easily, Samsung will liaise with you for the purpose of this statement is to, with you, determine which is the best way for inspecting that product, whether to determine it is faulty or not, for the best way possible. Which is fucking, 뭔 의미냐 이게, 아무리 씨발 화려하게 설명을 해도 내용이 없잖아. 문법은 거기다 쓰라고 있는 게 아니야. 문법의 정의는 단어들을 논리에 맞게, 너의 분석에 맞게 그대로 표현하는 게 문법의 정의고, 그 문법의 수준이 높다는 것은 논리의 관계성이 높다는 거지. 단어를 이렇게 저렇게 배열을 해서 어느 정도 그럴듯하게 설명을 했는데 실제로는 의미가 없는 문장을 만드는 게 문법의 목적이 아니야. Okay? C. This warranty does not extend to number fucking 10까지 있네. Number 1. Loss caused by normal wear and tear, fire and water, liquid spillage or ingression, theft, vermin or insect infestation, products that are not used for their intended function, any failure or defect that arises out of the presence of a third-party product from the presence of the third-party product, software component, or whether authorized or not. 이건 또 뭔 소리야 이 씨발알. Any failure or defect resulting from improper installation, misuse, unauthorized repair, modification, or accident, any alterations, modifications, or physical damage of the product, including but not limited to deep scratches, from being said, from the deep scratches for the simple one to the extending the serious one, it is not applicable to be under warranty. Any alterations, any alterations, modifications, or removal of any Samsung labels or barcodes on the products would operate upon the PSD casing, products that have been tampered with or not, or are missing tape seal or serial number, cost and expenses relating to product overhaul, assembly, and data recovery repairs and replacements, which was said before. Like said, Samsung does not compensate or be responsible for any other costs for by the user for overhauling, inspecting, assembling, upgrading, remodifying all of the actions and all those expenses related on that, and also after ensued action, which is the data recovery after the upgrade, which also necessitates the additional cost for data recovery, is also not included for the responsibility stated. And and the products which have been received improperly packaged and thus be damaged, altered, or physically damaged, he says. D. This warranty does not cover damage caused by misuse or abusive use. Misuse or abusive use. Misuse or abusive use of the Samsung product, including physical abuse. Incorrect operation or not following the operation instructions say in the product operation manufacturer's instruction product. Improper installation, incorrect or improper maintenance, or failure to maintain the Samsung product. Abusive. Failure to clean or improper cleaning of the product. Cleaning? Incorrect voltage or non-authorized electrical connections. Adverse external conditions such as power surges and dips, thermoreactivity, acts of God, what it says, what it implicates, what it on the hell on the earth says. Adverse external conditions, Adverse external conditions such as power surges and dips, thunderstorm activity, acts of God. It says the all natural susceptible to the all natural disasters from the flood, natural disasters. Okay, acts of terrorism. Yes, it being said from man, damage caused by vermin or any other act or circumstance beyond Samsung's control. That specifies its stipulation for dividing the area of responsibility or which are not. Exposure to excessive heat, moisture, or dampness, exposure to abnormally corrosive conditions. Oh, acid, sulfur. Use of non-authorized, non-standard, defective, or incompatible parts. Oh, defective. Oh, I love it. Password setting / resetting and computer virus and repair, modification, or other work carried out on the Samsung product other than by authorized Samsung service personnel. Repair, modification, or other work carried out on the Samsung product, reparation, modification, or other works carried out on the Samsung product by the one, but other than that authorized personnel, oh, it is not applied. This warranty does not cover Samsung products purchased in an auction. Auction, like a dark web. Ooh! The auction. The reparation, modifications, or other works carried out on this Samsung product by someone who is not an unauthorized Samsung personnel is not applicable to this warranty. If the Samsung product you are using has been rented or leased by you and you consider a claim might be made under this warranty, you should refer the matter to the rental or leasing company immediately and they will handle the matter. This warranty does not cover Samsung products which, at the time you consider a claim might be made under this warranty, do not bear the original manufacturer's factory-applied serial number in its original form. For instance, or the sticker bearing it has been removed, wiped out, rubbed off, or altered. This warranty does not cover Samsung products which, at the time you consider a claim might be made under this warranty, product having no original manufacturer's factory applied serial number. Okay. Products, but can be products that are not made by a Samsung authorized official manufacturing facility. Products having no original manufacturer's factory applied serial number in its original form, which means the factory really made a provenance, like a really provenance of its origin of the product in its original form. Yes, the factory is responsible for manufacturing that from which the defection is made, which means the factory is responsible for that loss. This warranty does not cover the loss of any data howsoever. Wow! Howsoever! Whatsoever, whenever, howsoever. That's a new word. This word does not cover the loss of any data howsoever caused. Wow. That's a legal word. Howsoever, so whatever the method would be, mobilizing that recovery or modification or any other attempts to upgrade or try to repair it by whatever and whichever the method and the way would be carried howsoever is not applied. So whatever attempts would be borne by howsoever methods is not applied. That's a firm statement and concrete one. Okay. You shall be responsible for backing up and protecting data against loss, damage, or destruction. Please note that the replacement of goods will result in loss of data. This warranty does not cover any defects not notified to Samsung within the warranty period. However, You may also have statutory rights to offset its warranty period. Which says what? You've been saying this like 3 or 4 times, but having no specification under that statement. By what cause, like the Australian Consumer Act, which is not written on this. Part 2, which is the last one, product warranty periods in special conditions. You agree that the product shall not be used in life support system or other application where failure could threaten injury to life. Samsung disclaims any and all liability in connection with arising out of or related to any such use of product. This part of the warranty identifies Samsung's preferred approach to resolving warranty claims. This part identifies the periods under which a claim may be made under its warranty. However, you may also have structured up this. Oh, you've been saying again. Let's just 4 or 5 times. Which is written on other code, Australian Consumer Law. The warranty period for Samsung is the shorter of. Number 1, it says again, for the shorter of. The warranty period for Samsung SSD is the shorter of. Number 1, a period 3 years for the T5 and Evo, T7 and Touch and Shield, and 5 years for the T9. Number 2, the period ending on the date when the SSD has exceeded its total bytes written thresholds, as may be indicated by Samsung's Magician software for specific information threshold blah 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 blah. This warranty period will end earlier if the SSD has exceeded its TBW, which refers to total bytes written, which means the capacity for its like the indicator of the depreciation of all objects. They can have its functionality, performance down over time, over all the actions have been taken onto which, as may be indicated by to the extent permitted by law and subject to the non-excludable rights under the Australian Consumer Law, this is your exclusive remedy for any breach of this agreement. Samsung also recommends that all data on the product should be backed up before being sent to Samsung. This warranty does not cover the loss of any data howsoever. Well, it says again, howsoever. Howsoever caused. You shall be responsible for backing up and protecting data against loss, damage, or destruction. In the case of replacements, ownership of the original product will be transferred to Samsung, and Samsung will not return original product to you. Service sounds information. The warranty period is enclosed scale provided so on. Oh, it says again.